Hi, everyone. This is Caroline with Expat Interviews, Thriving Abroad, where I get to go all over the globe, just sitting here in my chair and meet fabulous, amazing, wonderful people. And it's an honor and a pleasure today to be able to present to you and talk with my new buddy, Tanyette Cologne. Welcome, Tanyette, to our Expat interview.
Thank you for having me. This is kind of intimidating. I'm used to being on the other side.
On the other side. Okay, we're gonna make you feel comfortable though. So Tanyette, I was anxious to talk with you and introduce you to everyone. You are what would we call you? You're a New Yorker originally?
Yeah, I was born in New York, raised in South Florida. My parents, I'm Hispanic, I'm Puerto Rican. Some Spaniard and
Boricua.
Boricua, and the islands had everything. So I have Spaniard, I have Taino, you name it. It's all in the mix in our legacy. But I was born in New York, and then we moved to South Florida when I was about 7. But now I'm back in New York again.
Yes, always got to return back to your roots.
Always got to go back home.
So you have an interesting background. I mean, being a Latina, Puerto Rican, I know this is going to sound a little strange, but I'm originally from New Jersey, and I grew up around a lot of Latinas, a lot of Puerto Ricans, and we don't always hear of them in the entrepreneurial space. Like growing up, they were just kind of like the folks that just hung out, just did whatever.
Old school.
Old school, just having their families and whatever. So it's so beautiful to see, folks like yourself that are blooming and helping others. And you're an entrepreneur. You have a great summit that you do on a regular basis. But tell us about your first. I wanted to talk about you. You also live in Norway part of the time. How did that come about?
So it's just so funny how life is full circle, how things manifest in years later when you don't even really think about it. But my aunt married Norwegian 30 years ago. And this was my favorite. You know how everyone has a favorite auntie? This was my favorite auntie. She was the youngest one of the family of 8. It's my dad's baby sister. And I always idolized her as a little girl. And she was the brave one. She's the one that went to Norway to follow her dream of being at peace. So so I have family there. But so I would go visit once a year. What started it to become more of a full-time, part-time life was about 3 years ago. I launched a company at the time with Norwegian partners. I had tried doing it in the US. To your point, a lot of I don't like to use the term minority, I call them majorities. But there's a difficult time, right? We're the ones that get the least amount of funding for things. It's really sometimes difficult to find allies, not always, but it tends to happen, right? And so I found an audience in Norway through a tech convention, and that's how that whole journey began. That's where I started literally living there part-time and having an apartment there, and then being a mom and going back and forth across the Atlantic for literally 3.5 years.
What was that like coming from your culture to a Nordic culture? Did you find it to be very different? Was it a difficult adjustment?
I would say it's we're the same, but completely opposite at the same time. The thing about Norway is they do speak English. They learn it at a very early age. And once they know, and they love American culture. So once they know you're American, it's almost like an automatic. They want to speak English to you, especially if you're from New York, etc. But they are opposite, right? Because if you're coming from what I would call a warm culture, like a Spanish culture where you're used to speaking what you feel and there's all this passion, they're quite conservative, especially in Norway. If you have to look at all of the Scandinavian countries, Norwegians would be the most conservative and the Danes would be the ones that are more, because they're closer to mainland Europe, that are way more open to having chats. Like Americans can just sit at a coffee shop and just talk to just anyone. You wouldn't have that be the case in Norway. So I think for some people coming from a culture that's on the opposite side of that spectrum, it might be difficult at first to build your network, right? You have to go into it with this sense of wonderment into the culture. You have to go into in any culture, I feel like, with this sense of curiosity, because the minute you go down the road of trying to compare it back to home, that's a losing proposition. And I think a lot of people get stuck in that when they make these transitions. It's hard to get out of it, but my advice is always like really connect with your inner child and get into that playful space of getting curious with the culture, celebrating it while celebrating who you are as an individual. That's what's made my life there absolutely amazing. And I've been able to grow a network rather quickly. And it wasn't because I had family there, because my family didn't introduce me to that network. I did it on my own, basically.
Oh my God, I wish I could just rewind what you said about, just getting into the culture with like a fresh mindset. It's so important. And I've lived in mostly in Latin America, and I see, expats, especially Americans, and we get to this place and we're like, okay, why are they doing that? Why is this happening? How come we don't do it? Why don't you do it that way? Well, this sucks, and that, and we forget, hello, this is a different country. It's a different culture. So I think that's the first thing that we really have to learn. So what keeps you there in Norway? Instead of just going full time.
What keeps me more in New York is because I have a teen son who's 16, and he's a junior in high school. So that's what's keeping me mostly in the US is him. But in this journey, I think we talked about it before we started the interview, for a long time, when I think it's more difficult doing halftime, right? Because you're never really in one place long enough to fully, it's like you arrive, you adjust, and you're ready to get on a plane again, to get on the other side, to do the same dance and the time change or whatever. So for a long time, I felt split, right? I literally felt like I was divided in half, and it was two separate worlds. And the best thing my mentor ever told me to work on was to shift that, what was my own reality, right? Because home is wherever you are in all actuality, right? So there was no division. I'm just lucky enough to get the balance of two beautiful worlds. And that's the way I view it. That's the way I view it now. And I don't feel as conflicted now, because I love my Norwegian life and what Norway gives to me. I regenerate the same way I love the way being in New York, even in the time of COVID, and the rawness and the direct and the real that being in Queens, New York offers, right? I can go down the street and it's the butcher that's been there for 30 plus years, and people chit chat. Even in the time of COVID, it's still New York, New York strong. So yeah, and I feel blessed to have both. I feel like New York keeps me humble, and Norway regenerates me, because of the nature is just outrageous.
I think that's a great point. We talk often about, when we talk about folks moving abroad, most people think that, okay, I've got to sell all my things, pack everything up, leave everything behind, go, and I'm never coming back. And I love that you're actually, a good example of how, you can have both worlds. You can be in one place 6 months, or another place 6 months, or, even just temporarily. It's not an all end all to be all kind of a lifestyle. So that's really interesting. I'm happy, to hear that we can, let folks know, like, we're not, when we say, hey, try life abroad, it doesn't mean go and never go back, or just stay in one place and must stay here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually recommend people to test drive actually what it would be like to really live like a local. That's the best way to really immerse in any culture. And I'm all about where your heart sings, right? Because even though, yes, home is wherever you are, I really do believe from a spiritual and vibrational level that we all have certain places that sing to our soul more than others. At least
I agree.
That's been the case for me.
Sure.
And I've traveled through the US. There's still places to check off. I still haven't really fully found that place in the US. Maybe Chicago, but I haven't. I thought Sedona would be it. No. And then with Europe, in my travel so far, it's been Italy and Scandinavia. Scandinavia, due to the quality of life, and what's there not to love about Italy, and especially in the north, Lake Como. Yeah.
But do you find that maybe when you thought that one place was the perfect place, then you went somewhere else and said, oh my God, this place could be it too? Is it always another possibility of places? Or do you feel that you've just found Norway is it? for you?
I think it's Norway and Lake Como, Italy. Those, and I only base it on like what I call my muse spaces. Where do I go to where I feel like there's reciprocity, that I'm so in tuned with it in the nature? For me, it's really about nature. It's not about being in the, Paris and the city. Yes, Paris is beautiful. The only other place was the south of France that I went to, which was off the beaten path. And it was actually, what brought me there was the Oprah Winfrey movie. And I think Steven Spielberg directed it, and it was called 100-Foot Journey. And there was this adorable town called St. Anthony Noble-Val. And I decided to go visit there just because of the movie. And it turned out to be the most beautiful place in the south of France. And again, off the beaten path. Like you could find an Airbnb there for $40 a night kind of thing. But to answer your question, I think there's always going to be beautiful places, but and you could say, yeah, I could do this for a month. But the places that make your heart sing to the point of where you feel there's some synchronicity on a soul level, I don't know that that's every place. At least that's not the case for me.
Okay. Okay. So you are an entrepreneur, you're a motivational entrepreneur. And I love just, going through your Instagram posts, it's so beautiful, daily or whenever to look at motivational material. It just, it's just kind of soothing. Tell me about a little bit about the summits that you put out. What do you do?
So I, outside of being an entrepreneur, and I do still I'm an entrepreneur, but I still have a day job. I've been with like the USA Today, Gannett for about 14 plus years as a senior level marketing consultant. And that's where the tech company came in to bridge some gaps in the healthcare world. But the thing with Emboldened Life and Emboldened Entrepreneur, that part of the summit series started during the time of COVID, because I had an opportunity to reset and look at my own healthcare company, healthcare tech company I was building with the Norwegian co-founders. And there were a lot of mistakes I made as a first-time founder, right? And I had enough time to finally slow down to have that mirror moment to say, okay, how did I co-create some of this, right? Because what's happening out here, I created. And then my mentor, who's amazing, just asked me something that, seems like an obvious, like, why are you doing this? Why did you build that company? And I automatically went to the brain and said, well, it's a business to business problem. And she had to ask me the question 5 times for me to then answer it from my heart. And it had a lot to do with an experience I had with my mother when I was younger that became the motivation to build that company. And that experience made me realize that so many of us are still hiding, right? A majority of my life, I've always been what I call a great supporting actress, but always kind of afraid to be center stage. And I don't mean that in an ego sense, like really step forward into my authentic voice, right? And so this last year was all about coming out of hiding, like really like speaking and all of that. And so that was really the heart-centered reason why I started to do Emboldened Entrepreneur, because I wanted to inspire more women and people in general to really be able to not only dream audaciously, but to also see the beauty in their voice. There's billions of people on this earth, right? And not everyone's going to resonate with the one person that has that one message, right? We all have our authentic, what I call fingerprint here on this earth, and we all have a life purpose. And what COVID taught us all is that it would be a disservice not to step forward at a time when so much light is needed. So that was Emboldened Entrepreneur, was to create a stage to talk to everyday people that are out there living their life's purpose. They're bold, they're showing people through their own stories how it can be done, how we can all make a difference in the smallest level in our day-to-day lives. And I wanted it to be very diverse for obvious reasons, because a lot of us don't get that opportunity to tell our story. So that's really where it all came from. I have no idea where this journey is going to go, but yeah, that was the behind the scenes as to the why.
That was my next question. Are you going to continue to do it? Is it on a monthly basis or just whenever you're able to organize it?
So the next one will probably be in another month. I felt like called to do, I'm going to be releasing, like, I don't want to call it a challenge. It's going to be like it's going to be called 7 Days of Wonderment. And the whole idea behind that is I want people to, since a lot of people aren't able to travel etc. I want people to really connect with living in the now and reconnecting with their inner child, because that's where all the creative spark comes from. And if you can do that, even in an urban environment, right? Like the concrete jungle, there's still nature, there's still birds singing. And I want people on a very micro level to reconnect with all of that. So that's going to be the thing I release in February. And then more than likely late Feb, early March, we'll do another summit.
Okay, great. And how can we connect with you to find out more?
The best way to connect with me right now, it's on Instagram, which is at Tanyette, Tanyette. And then I'm going to actually be launching my first room in Clubhouse next Friday to be able to start having these conversations more interactive and live there as well. So those are the two, and I'll have a website and I'm going to have other things, but if anyone's interested in the 7-day journey, that will be announced on Instagram soon.
Great. And I will put the link for your Instagram here at the bottom of our video. Tanyette, you are an entrepreneur, a go-getter, you work, you're a mom, you're a traveler. There are folks in the same pedophile, like we would say in Spanish, in that profile out here thinking about making a transition. Any last words, any words of advice that you could give them for those that really don't know where to begin?
That's always the hard one, right? Because it can be so overwhelming to take that first step. My whole thing is I'm a big advocate of taking a time out, really connecting within, finding out what makes your heart sing. And then like anything else, you don't have to have the entire roadmap. You actually don't need the roadmap at all. You just need to have the belief that you're on the right path and take the first step. So what I tell a lot of people, and I think this is what holds people back from stepping into their voices, is that you just have to do it. Forget about that you need the ring to talk to some, the correct lighting or whatever. Find the sun and a good angle, put the camera on, and just start putting whatever's singing to your heart. My whole thing is, as long as you're here to serve and as long as you're being heart driven, you can't go wrong. There is no messing it up. The only time we mess it up is when we do nothing. So that would be the best advice I would give. And there's so many people out there that are doing it. So seek for inspiration and align yourself with people that can be, like we talked about earlier, part of your squad that will help you keep moving one step in front of the other.
That's beautiful advice. Beautiful advice. Thank you, Tanyette Colon. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And hopefully folks can connect with you and get a little bit more information about your 7-day movement, let's call it, and maybe connect with you in the Clubhouse, which is going to be a really new and exciting space for many of us.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to get in there. I would love to.
I'm in. I'm going to be in. Thank you so much again, Tanyette. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Many blessings.
Same to you. We'll be collaborating soon.
All right. Bye-bye.